We can do this together. If we all stand together. We can do this together. If we all stand together. We can do this together. If we all stand together.
All right. I see everybody's muted. Hello, everybody. We're a couple minutes early. Oh, actually, we're right on time. Time's just fine today. Elizabeth from Trakref, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Terrific. I hope everybody else can see my screen as well. Since we're just a minute past, I usually wait a couple minutes. This is my favorite topic, so I don't think there's anything I like to talk about more than refrigerant reclaim and handling and reuse. So let everybody join and we'll go from there. I have not seen Paul Dombrowski for 2 weeks. I'm gonna have to find out where he is. I guess the weather got nice. Paul's probably busy. Roya, I see that you made it.
I am here.
All right. Dan, welcome back.
Thank you.
Hope everybody's enjoying spring.
It's beautiful out here.
Thanks. All right. Let's see. Steve Ehrlich, is that you?
It is.
All right, welcome. How's the rest of your day going, Steve?
I was in a customer training session, so we've been busy.
That's good. All right. All right. I want to try to get through this in about 20 minutes, and I've got a few opinions. I don't normally push my opinions too much. I try to stay in the middle, but on this one, I feel like I've got a lot to talk about. So I'm going to get in, and I'm happy to hear comments. I love to hear comments. Just because they're my opinions doesn't mean they're right. Let me start with that. And first, let me start by saying that I had a front row seat for this entire process for 20 years. Today, we are going to talk about CARB's R4 program. I like to jokingly say CARB is going from R3 to R4, even though I recognize that the refrigerant recovery, recycle, and reuse program is different than R3. It's basically the fourth dimension for CARB's R3 program. You know, they've had the registration, reporting, and record keeping program, and now they're adding refrigerant to it. So I think it's an ambitious, fantastic, needed idea, and I would call it the final test of the U.S. market's possibility to actually host a refrigerant recycling reclaim program, because up until now, it's broken. And we're going to talk about that. And I should also point out that it's not just broken in the refrigerant reclaim world. Tracking and managing refrigerants are one of the hardest things. And I like to put this in perspective. The UN runs a chemical weapons program that does not have accurate tracking. Nuclear waste is not accurately tracked. So tracking refrigerants is even more complicated because there's a lot more sources, and it's a lot broader in the marketplace, and it's a lot more challenging, and there's a lot more flavors. So we should at least respect the fact that this is not an easy process. My name's Ted Atwood. I've been doing this for 27 years, just a few years shorter than Steve Ehrlich. Steve's history, it says 25 years, but the two of us are getting older. Fair to say, Steve?
I started doing refrigerant compliance consulting in 95. Started hugging chillers in the 70s. So 25's nice.
That's a few years back. It makes us both feel younger. Look, this is a proposed amendment to California's HFC regulation. And I'm going to get past some of the high level stuff. Under Senate Bill 1383, state of California has authority to do this. Under the further expansion of the CARB HFC regulation, this topic has come up a lot. What are the reclaim requirements in California? It establishes a requirement, and this slide speaks for itself, where 10% of 410 that enters California in new equipment in 2023 and 2024 has to be, well, the state calls it reclaim. But we're going to get into the tactics of that topic. There is no technical thing called reclaim refrigerant. And so I'm going to talk about that, why that has to change. I think it can change. I think it should change. I thought for decades that it should have changed.
What I've always taught is reclaim is a process that includes independent testing and that returns the used refrigerant back to virgin specifications. Is that kind of what you followed?
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, so they are using that term, to use reclaim, but, to use refrigerant that was reclaimed or went through a reclaiming process, whatever. But that's, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and so this is an incredibly gray area. I think I started this conversation by saying it was ambitious and I had some opinions. It does not mean that I don't believe it's a great opportunity to see this work. And I consider it the last experiment because, and I'm calling it an experiment because it's never been done. We have never had true transparency on the supply chain. As a matter of fact, the supply chain is so vulnerable that in the 90s, we had CFCs flying in from Russia, roughly 20 million pounds a year, all of them labeled as virgin. As reclaim. And the EPA could do almost nothing about it. They put a little oil in there, a little air, a little water, and this import issue became so bad that it really proved the entire supply chain was vulnerable to these kind of misleading statements and misaligned and mislabeled materials. And that legacy continues today. So I'm going to give you all the bad things. I'm going to tell you, a couple of ideas about how to make this work. But I'm also going to talk about how California is working. And I'm using the failures of both the CFC import era, which was really a bloodbath in the supply chain in the 90s. It was terrible. And I'm using the failures of the black market in Europe with black market HFCs to highlight opportunities in a path forward. All right. This is directly from the state's press release. We're going to share these slides with you. The reason we put this on here is I think it's really interesting that the state's ambitions on this are not just isolated to the California boundaries there. They want to export this model, and they want it to be a national model. And I think that's a great idea. And as CARB's moved forward on this, I like how they use the opportunity to focus on a specific product, which is R410 in the early days. And I think it's going to be short-lived as just isolated to 410, but 410 is what we need to talk about today. So as you can see from this statement, there's a goal to make everything 100% or focus 100% on refrigerant recovery and recycling. And so, again, I love it. I think it's a great opportunity for us in the United States, but it's never been done. And so a lot of new things have to change. You cannot go into this program thinking about how it could be without thinking, I've got to change the way I'm doing things today. And then if you're
How's about we talk about those HFCs? Just read the facts if you don't believe me. What's your leakage disposal and recycle is key.